It started on a morning too quiet to be peaceful, the kind of silence that warns you something is wrong. Mist curled over the emerald water of the lake, wrapping around the old wooden bridge like a shroud. I stood there with a cup of coffee in hand, staring across to the other side, where pine trees clawed at the rising fog. For a moment, the bridge looked almost alive, breathing, sighing. A part of me, that bridge wasn't just wood and bolts. It was the reason my small town had survived when the rest of the valley shut down. It was the only road that connected our quiet hillside homes to the city across the water. Every plank had a story. Stories of people crossing for work, children walking to school, families heading to the market every Sunday. And I had built it, not with a government grant or city funds, not with construction companies' help. I had built it with my own hands, with neighbors who believed in something simple: connection. When the floods came 5 years ago and washed away the old crossing, I sold my truck, borrowed money, and worked every night to rebuild it. Everyone used it, even those who never thanked me. So, when I woke up that morning to the sound of chains and steel clanging across the lake, I thought it was a dream, but it wasn't. 2 yellow cranes stood tall on the far end, their long arms dipping into the water like predators. Men in orange vests were tearing down my bridge, my lifeline, plank by plank. I ran. Gravel crunched beneath my boots as I sprinted down the slope. The closer I got, the louder the chaos became, metal grinding, with splintering, the sharp crack of boards breaking apart. My heart pounded harder than my footsteps. When I reached the edge of the road, a police truck blocked my path. Blue and red lights flashed across the water, reflecting off the cranes like a twisted carnival. "Hey, stop!" I shouted. "You can't do that." A uniformed officer turned toward me, his expression unreadable beneath the brim of his hat. "Sir, step back. This area is under demolition." "Demolition?" I barked. "That bridge belongs to me." Behind him, a woman in a red suit was giving orders, confident, sharp, and utterly out of place in the dirt and dust. Her heels clicked against the ground, as if she were walking across marble floors instead of broken timber. When she turned, her eyes met mine, cold, calculating. "Mr. Harris," she said smoothly, as if my name were an inconvenience on her tongue. "We've been expecting you." I froze. "Expecting me?" She gave a thin smile. "This bridge violates several environmental and zoning regulations. It's obstructing public development in the valley. The city council approved its removal last month." Her words fell like stones into the pit of my stomach. "The city council? You mean the people who use this bridge every single day?" She tilted her head slightly. "I'm afraid personal ownership doesn't override community progress." My voice rose, trembling with anger. "Community progress? You mean your progress. You're building that luxury resort by the lake, aren't you? You want tourists, not townsfolk." The officer shifted uneasily beside me, but the woman didn't flinch. "You should be grateful," she said. "We'll be building a new modern bridge. Wider, stronger, government approved. In a few months, this will all be better." "Better for who?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. She turned, gave a hand signal to the crane operator, and within seconds, another section of wood was ripped away. The bridge groaned like an old beast dying, a deep, sorrowful creak that cut through the mist. I felt something inside me break with it. By afternoon, the bridge was half gone. Workers moved methodically, tossing splintered beams into the water. The police stayed close, ensuring I didn't interfere. But I didn't move. I just watched, numb, as years of sweat and sacrifice sank beneath the green water. When the last plank fell, the woman in red approached again, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. "It's over," she said softly, almost pitying. "I know it's hard, but sometimes we have to let go of the past to make way for the future." I stared at her. "You have no idea what you've done." Her smile faltered for a split second before returning. "We've done what's necessary." "No," I whispered. "You've cut yourselves off. You've just destroyed the only road that leads to your neighborhood." She frowned. "Excuse me?" "That bridge wasn't just a path to my town," I said. It was the only road that connects your side to the mainland. You tore down your own access point. She blinked, confusion flickering across her face. That's impossible. We have alternate routes. Check your maps, I said, my voice low but steady. You built your fancy lakeside houses on the old forest route. The only other road was condemned years ago after the landslide. I rebuilt this bridge because it was the only safe way in or out. For the first time that day, she looked uncertain. She turned toward the officer, who was already reaching for his radio. A few moments later, the answer came back, short, clipped, and tense. There's no alternate route, ma'am. The northern path still blocked. This was the only access. Her face drained of color. The officer looked at me, then at the empty gap where the bridge used to be. The cranes had stopped moving. The workers stood frozen, realizing what they'd just done. The woman swallowed hard. You can't be serious. I took a slow step closer. You wanted progress. Well, congratulations. You just isolated your entire community. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I looked out over the water, calm now, almost mocking. Logs drifted lazily where my bridge had once stood, like ghosts of something once proud. I turned back to her. You can call your superiors your lawyers, whoever you want. But until you fix this, your people aren't going anywhere. And next time you decide to tear something down, maybe you'll ask who built it first. With that, I walked away, slow, deliberate, every step echoing on the gravel road that no longer led anywhere. That night, the valley was silent again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. The lights from the other side flickered in the distance. Cars stranded. People realizing the truth. I could almost hear the panic setting in, the realization that one man's little wooden bridge had been the thread holding their world together. I stood by the lake, the moonlight glimmering on the water, and whispered to wind, "You tore down my bridge, but you'll learn what it meant." Because sometimes destruction isn't the end. Sometimes it's just the start of justice. The next morning, the valley woke up to chaos. From my porch, I could see the fog lifting over the water, revealing the skeleton of what used to be my bridge. The surface of the lake was calm, deceptively calm, but beyond that stillness, panic had already begun to spread across the opposite shore. Through the thin morning mist, headlights blinked like fireflies trapped in confusion. Cars lined up with the road, now ended in nothing but air and splinters. A few men waved their arms, shouting across the water, but their voices faded before they reached me. I didn't wave back. They had called me stubborn, bitter, old-fashioned. They had laughed when I warned them that destroying the bridge would cost them more than wood and nails. Now they were finding out what it really meant to be cut off. By noon, I got the first call. The mayor's office. A number I hadn't seen in years. "Mr. Harris." The voice began, forced calm hiding behind nervousness. "We seem to have a bit of a situation." "A situation?" I said, pretending to sound puzzled. "I thought you called to progress." Silence. Then a weak chuckle. "Now, Mr. Harris, let's not turn this into—" "I told you people what would happen." I interrupted, "but they decided my property was an obstacle. So now, you can live with the consequences." The voice faltered. "Sir, please. You own the land around the bridge, yes? If you'd allow us temporary access, we can—" "No," I said simply. "You tore down my bridge. You deal with your own mess." And I hung up. I wasn't proud of the bitterness in my voice, but I wasn't ashamed either. Sometimes, people only learn when they fall into the pit they dug for someone else. By evening, the news vans had arrived. Helicopters circled above the valley, cameras flashing as reporters shouted headlines about a community trapped by bureaucratic failure. I watched it all from my window, the same view where I'd once watched the bridge come alive each morning. Now there was nothing but empty space. Then, around sunset, a familiar black SUV appeared on the dirt road, leading to my side. Dust trailed behind it like a fading shadow. When it stopped, the door opened, and out stepped a woman in red. Her shoes sank slightly into gravel, no longer as confident as before. Behind her came two city officials, their faces tight with anxiety. "Mr. Harris," she called out, her voice softer this time. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer immediately. I let her walk the few steps toward me, her heels clicking less surely than before. When she reached the porch, she hesitated before speaking again. "You were right," she said. "There's no other route. The landslide still blocks the northern path, and the water levels are too high for a temporary bridge. The entire neighborhood is stranded." I nodded slowly. "I told you." She sighed. "Look, I understand you're upset." "No," I interrupted. "Upset is when someone scratches your car or takes your parking spot. This is betrayal. You destroyed something built with faith, not permits. You turned connection into isolation." Her eyes dropped to the ground. "We didn't know." "That's the problem," I said. "You never asked." The city officials stepped forward nervously. "Mr. Harris, the council is prepared to negotiate. We're willing to fund a full rebuild. Faster, safer. You'd be compensated for the land." I leaned against the porch railing. "You mean you want to rebuild my bridge?" One of them nodded eagerly. "Yes, but under new jurisdiction. The city would own and maintain it." I raised a hand to stop him. "No, you already had your chance. You didn't just destroy wood and metal. You destroyed trust. You can't buy that back with money." The woman looked desperate now. "Mr. Harris, please. There are families trapped. Children. Supplies can't get through. The water lines run under that bridge. If we don't fix this soon, people could." I turned my gaze to the water. "Sometimes consequences are the best teachers." Her voice trembled with frustration. "You're punishing innocent people." I looked at her sharply. "And what do you call what you did to me?" She fell silent. The air between us hung heavy. Part guilt, part realization. Behind her, the cranes and workers stood idle, waiting for orders that wouldn't come. That night, as darkness wrapped around the valley, I couldn't sleep. The sounds of forest were louder now, owls rustling leaves, the distant ripple of the lake. But beneath it all, I could almost hear the whispers of conscience. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe revenge had burned hotter than reason. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's smug smile as she ordered the cranes to tear my bridge apart. Forgiveness didn't come easy to a man who'd built his world with his own hands. 3 days passed. The neighborhood across the water was falling apart. News reports showed empty store shelves, angry residents demanding answers. Someone even tried to build a raft. It capsized within minutes. The woman in red, whose name I learned was Laura Kensington, became the face of the crisis. Her confident press conferences turned into tearful apologies. The city council distanced itself from her. People began to whisper, "She ruined everything." Then, one morning, she came back. Alone. This time, there were no officials, no cameras. Just her. Her red suit was gone, replaced by a plain coat and worn shoes. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from work, but from regret. "Mr. Harris," she said quietly, "I'm not here on behalf of the city anymore. I just need to ask, why did you build that bridge in the first place?" I studied her face, searching for mockery, but there was none, only sincerity. So I told her. I told her about my wife, Grace, how she died waiting for an ambulance that never came because the old bridge had washed away in the flood. How I'd promised her that no one else would ever be trapped like that again. "I built it so people could reach help," I said softly, "so no one would have to feel what I felt that night." Her eyes welled up. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I replied. "You saw a structure. I saw a promise." She wiped her eyes. "Mr. Harris, I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can help rebuild it. Not as a project, not as property, but as an apology." I looked at her for a long time. The anger inside me flickered, like a dying flame struggling between hatred and forgiveness. "Why?" I asked finally. "Why do you care now?" "Because," she said, her voice trembling, "for the first time, I understand what it means to lose something that connected you to others." Her words lingered in the air, raw, honest. That night, I walked down to the water's edge. The moonlight shimmered on the broken beams, still jutting out from the lake. I placed my hand on one of them, feeling the rough splinters dig into my palm. Grace's words echoed in my mind. When you build something for others, don't let pride destroy its purpose. Maybe she was right. Maybe the bridge was never meant to be mine alone. The next morning, I called Laura. "Meet me at the site," I said. When she arrived, I was already there with a few of the old workers, men who'd helped me the first time. Their faces lit up when I told them what I planned to do. "We're rebuilding," I said simply. "But this time, it won't just be my bridge or your project. It'll be everyone's." Laura nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you." I looked at her. "Don't thank me yet. Just make sure the next time someone builds something meaningful, you protect it, not destroy it." Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. People from both sides of the lake showed up, not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to help. Farmers, shopkeepers, even teenagers came carrying wood, nails, and paint. The news called it the Bridge of Redemption. But for me, it was something deeper, a symbol that even when people tear you down, you can rise stronger if your purpose is pure. The air that morning felt different. For the first time in months, sunlight danced freely over the water, painting golden streaks across the surface of the lake. The broken wood that once floated aimlessly was gone, cleared out, replaced by new beams, fresh planks, and hands that worked not for money, not for pride, but for unity. I stood at the edge of the shore, watching the cranes lift the first major section into place. The hum of machinery, the chatter of volunteers, the rhythmic hammering of nails, all of it blended into a song of rebirth. The same people who once ignored me now waved when they saw me. Some came across in small boats, carrying food, tools, or even just moral support. There was laughter, something I hadn't heard here in years. Laura, the woman in red, was right there among them. No heels, no suit, no arrogance. Just work gloves and sweat on her brow. She didn't order anyone around this time. She took instructions, followed the carpenter's lead, and worked silently beside me. Sometimes our eyes met briefly, and a quiet understanding passed between us. Not words, just acknowledgement. It took weeks. The weather fought us. Heavy rain, strong winds, even a storm that almost washed away the progress. But no one quit. Every setback became a test of will. One evening, after a long day, I found Laura sitting alone by the edge of the new bridge, staring into the fading sunset. The sky burned in shades of orange and violet, reflecting off the calm lake. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I said, taking a seat beside her. She nodded, her voice soft. "It's more than that. It feels alive." I smiled faintly. "That's because people built it with heart this time." She looked at me, guilt still shadowing her expression. I think about what I did almost every night, how I destroyed something I didn't understand. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. I glanced at the shimmering water. Then don't try to. Forgiveness isn't something you ask from yourself. It's something you earn from the world around you. She turned to me, confused. "See," I continued, "when you build again, when you help others cross, lift them up, that's forgiveness. You're earning it right now, one plank at a time." Her lips trembled slightly before forming a grateful smile. "Thank you, Mr. Harris." I chuckled softly. "Call me John." For the first time, she did. A month later, the final piece of the bridge was ready to be placed. The entire valley gathered to watch. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Old folks leaned on canes. Workers stood shoulder to shoulder. It was more than a structure now. It was hope reborn. As the last wooden beam clicked into place, the crowd erupted into cheers. The sound echoed across the water, bouncing off the mountain walls like thunderous applause from nature itself. Laura turned toward me, tears glistening in her eyes. "It's done," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "No," I said, "it's just beginning." That evening, as the sun set behind the pine-covered hills, the bridge was officially reopened. A ribbon stretched across the middle, fluttering in the gentle wind. The mayor, humbled and visibly ashamed, asked me to cut it, but I didn't. Instead, I handed the scissors to Laura. "This was your mistake," I said quietly. "Now let it be your redemption." Her hands trembled as she took them. She looked at me for a long moment, eyes heavy with gratitude, regret, and respect. Then she cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered again, louder this time. The first car rolled across, followed by people walking, laughing, crying, touching the new planks as if to make sure it was real. For a moment, the entire valley felt alive again, connected. As night fell, I walked alone to the middle of the bridge. The wood was still warm from the day's work. I leaned on the railing, listening to the soft lap of water beneath. That's when I felt it. Not pride, not revenge, peace. Grace would have loved this moment. I could almost hear her voice in the wind, gentle and proud. "You kept your promise, John. You built something that mattered." I closed my eyes, letting the sound of laughter from both sides of the lake fill my heart. For so long, I thought the bridge was just mine, something I built to honor my loss. But now I understood. It wasn't about ownership. It was about connection, forgiveness, and the quiet strength it takes to rebuild after being broken. Days turned into weeks. The news called it a miracle of unity. The mayor announced new policies to protect local builders and community projects. People started referring to me as the bridge man, but none of that mattered. What mattered was watching school buses cross safely again, hearing laughter echo where there was once silence, seeing Laura smile not with power but with peace. One afternoon, as I repaired a small section of railing, Laura approached with a letter in her hand. "It's from the city council," she said. "They're offering to name the bridge after you." I shook my head with a gentle smile. "No need. It's not my bridge anymore. It belongs to everyone who believed in second chances." She folded the letter, eyes soft. "You know, John, this place taught me something I never learned in any office or council meeting." "Oh," I asked. She looked out over the water. "That destruction is easy, but creation, rebuilding, that takes heart." I nodded slowly. "And humility." She smiled. "That too." That evening, as the sky turned gold again, I noticed something beautiful. On both sides of the lake, kids had started painting wooden boards with bright colors, reds, blues, yellows, and hanging them along the railings. Each board had a name or message written on it. Family, hope, forgiveness, unity. The bridge had become a living memorial, not to loss, but to lessons learned. I felt something wet on my cheek and realized I was crying, not out of sadness, but gratitude. I whispered softly, "Grace, we did it." Weeks later, a journalist came to interview me for a feature titled, "The Man Who Lost Everything and Rebuilt the Town." He asked me one final question before he left. "If you could say one thing to the people who tore down your bridge, what would it be?" I looked at the camera, the rebuilt bridge stretching proudly behind me, and said, "Sometimes people destroy the things they don't understand. But life has a way of making them cross the same bridge again, this time with humility. If my story teaches anything, it's this: never tear down what connects hearts, because one day you might need that very path to find your way home." That line went viral. Thousands shared it, millions watched it. But for me, it was never about views or fame. It was about reminding people that bridges, both real and emotional, are sacred. You can destroy one in minutes. But rebuilding it, that takes courage, forgiveness, and faith.